I remember the first time you came here, everyone was terrified.
I think that those are the foundational standards that help really move a company forward.
And you can't fake that.
You're doing what you say you're doing. Audit should be a piece of cake.
Welcome everybody to the Affordable Staff Podcast. I have a special podcast that we're recording today with Seth.
Seth Shea.
How are you, Seth?
I'm well, sir. Thank you very much.
What are you doing here?
I'm grilling your entire organization about all things ISO. No, I have the privilege of being here as the ISO representative for your 9001 and 27001 certification. And we are going into your recertification program next year. So we are just kicking the tires and making sure that you feel comfortable for that particular event next year.
How long have we been doing this? How long have we known each other for now?
I think we've known each other for 4 years. This is going on our
fourth?
5 years.
So 5 years we started this journey.
Yeah, it has been. And it has been a very continuously improving journey.
Thank you. It's when we first started it, I remember the first time you came here.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was terrified. And we were going through the whole process of you looking around the organization, and looking at what we've built, giving us ideas from the very beginning under our 9001 and 27001 around ideas and things that we could improve.
Yep.
And it's been a journey, right?
Mm-hmm. It has been. You know, coming into an organization, even though we had prior conversations and kind of some assurances and some ideas of how things are going to go, no one really knows what's going to happen if they've not experienced it before. But from my perspective, you know, all of the conversations we had led me to understand that you had systems in place and that you had an idea and a path and a vision of how you wanted to move forward. And it was much less stressful for me than it was for you, apparently. But it's always nice to walk in an organization where people are willing to expose themselves to outside eyes and to learn from that and take the offered constructive advice in a way to build and grow. And you've done that every step of the way. So
yes,
that's why we're here.
And you obviously do this for a living. So you go through this process a lot.
A lot.
Every time I talk to you, you're in a different country.
That is so very true. So my credentials are a little bit greater than 9001 and 27001. I have clients in the aerospace. I have clients in the nuclear side. I have food safety, security, and then all things in between, medical device. But I really enjoy, you know, getting into the quality improvement, the 9001 and the information security, because I think that those are the foundational standards that help really move a company forward, and also gives the clients the greatest confidence that their information and their sensitive things can be trusted. And, you know, without trust in a relationship, it doesn't matter how much improvement you do, without their buy-in because of your successes, the relationships are going to be a lot shorter lived. So I enjoyed this space probably more than others.
And I have asked you about some of your other clients, but you did tell me that you could tell me you'd have to kill me. So
some of them, yes. Some of them, you know, are taking us to faraway places in the stars, and other places, well, you know, I don't want to be 6 feet under tomorrow. So it is, there are some, you know, every organization that has a desire to work with the government or a military organization all stems out of ISO. You can't get a military contract, a government, anything unless you have an ISO cert. The United States government cannot do their own IT management. They have a third party, someone. They have to hire someone from outside the government to run their information security. So the FBI, the CIA, the Department of Forestry, Department of Labor, they all have to outsource their IT, their information security, their servers. The only people that don't have to quite do that is the NSA, but they still have third-party companies that come in and do things, and they partner with Amazon and Cisco and, you know, Microsoft, but, you know, they do it in a very different way, but they still have to maintain, the companies that work with them still have to maintain clearances and certifications because it's required and written in the contract. So I see a very diverse client base every year.
So within the private sector, why is a business normally looking at achieving a level of certification? I mean, I know why we've looked at going down the process, but what have you experienced out in the private sector?
So rarely do I find somebody who stumbles on ISO and says, "Oh, that's a great idea. I want to do that because I want to have extra scrutiny." Normally, what propagates an investigation to ISO is that somebody they want to work for or an industry they want to get into requires it. Or, for example, in Utah, in the United States, most of the industry was heavily reliant on mining. And because of previous administrations and Clean Air Act type policies, they were having to shift their labor, their talents, and their skills into a different bucket. And so there were programs out there to help those businesses transition into a way that they could move their services and skill sets into a different box. And so sometimes it's transforming yourself, sometimes it's getting access to things, and on a very rare occasion, people want to, grow their business, and they heard that, ISO is a good way to begin, putting together policies and procedures and controls. And sometimes they realize that they need that, and we get brought in to do that too.
Yes. So you've been here again, or you're here for the 2026 audit for recertification. This is a surveillance audit for us.
Correct.
So we've set up a number of people for you to talk to. You've looked at each different area or the different departments within the business that fall under 9001 and 27001. You've toured the operation. You've been able to talk to each of those different areas. Now, what are you going to do after you leave here? What do you do with all of that information that you gather?
That's a great question. So ISO 9001 and ISO 27001 has a standard, and each section of the standard has inputs and outputs or shall statements. You shall do this, and you should control it in this way. My job is I have to do what's called an audit trail, which means I have to show my registrar or any other person who would want to come behind me, and I have to identify the pieces of evidence that I felt showed your compliance, your controls, your progress, your continuous improvement. And so it can be down to a very specific PO on a date. It can be a software program. It can be, a tile in Trello. Anything that I can show as an empirical piece of evidence that you comply, that I can trace, is what I record. So I have a giant form that I fill out, which covers each section of the standards. So 4.1, 4.2, 8.7, I have to produce a dialogue and the concrete empirical evidence of what you produced. And then I submit that to the registrar. They do a technical review of my evidence I've submitted that shows your story, your compliance, your efforts. And so I try to highlight all your successes and areas that I think would be the most impactful to them. And then as they review my body of evidence, then they support my recommendation to maintain your certification. And so what people don't understand is that every time I come here, it's not that you get recertified every 3 years, you get permission to continue to operate every year. So if I don't submit my report on a surveillance, or I miss something or something's not correct, they can suspend your cert at any given year in the 3-year cycle. But at the recert, which you're going to next year, we're required to treat the organization from a much more intensive lens, like you do on initial certification, to make sure that we haven't missed anything in the previous couple of years, to ensure that no stone is left unturned, so to speak.
So you take all that information and you create a report, and then where does that go to?
It goes to the registrar, which yours is ARS, and then ARS has a larger governing body, which is the, I think it's the IAF, and then it goes to the giant the giant entity. So ISO is a international standard, and so they have people who make the rules, and then they have, in every country, they have one or two registration bodies who are responsible for maintaining their level of, I don't know, like their territory, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have certification bodies who actually go out and do the independent work like myself. So I submit my work to a registration body, to a cert body. The cert body submits to the registration body. Registration body submits it to, the IAF, which basically writes the ISO rules. And then everybody audits everybody all the way down the cycle. So every 3 years, the certification body gets audited to make sure my reports are correct, that they have done things correctly. The registration bodies get audited by, the mothership. So everybody's auditing everybody. And again, at any point in time, if somebody wants to come and say, what does Seth do in 2026? They pull out my report and they should be able to walk in and say, David, Seth looked at these 5 things, and you should be able to produce those records for them. And they should be able to say, yep, apple to apple. And they can assess whether or not my assessment was correct. Or if you decide for some reason you're unhappy with how the audit went, you can say, I don't like what Seth said. I don't like his findings. He was a complete jerk and, was unfair and all that kind of stuff. And then they'll come and look at my evidence compared to what you presented, and they can say, we agree with him or we agree with you. So there's processes in place for everybody to make sure everybody's running on the same playbook.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So let's go back to our journey then. So I remember the first time you came, and like we said, it was an intense time for us because it was the first time we'd experienced anything like that. And a lot of the team in the office, we'd worked hard to get to the place where we were at in preparation for where we were for the journey. So we received our certification year 1. Mm-hmm. Now, if you think about year 1, when you first submitted your evidence, and you take us along a journey to where we're at now, where do you see us as a business from when we were first certified to today, where we're at now?
That's a great question, and I think I've kind of spoken to this a little bit during the audit. So we have a 3-year certification cycle for a reason. First year, everybody gets introduced. You write a brand new process. You write a quality management system. You do your best to make sure you're meeting all the requirements. We come together the first year. We have an evaluation, and we kind of have a true up as far as where we think we are. The feedback happens. Leadership gets, a closing meeting where we have discussions about what were the good things, what were the improvement areas, what are the things we did well. And then we start a continuous improvement journey after that. So you'll take all that feedback and all that information, and then you implement all of the recommendations that you choose to follow, all the observations, and then you begin your process of improvement. And then I come back, obviously, the next year and track it. So we're at recertification. And to answer your question, as different companies grow and mature at different rates, there are companies who take years to understand the concepts of ISO. There are other companies who kind of middle the road it, and there are companies who actually embrace it as an identity and as a culture and a way of doing things, because they see the value in the long-term longevity of their business and how ISO impacts it. So to your credit, from year 1 to year 2 to year 3, we take more of a show me approach. We take a prove it to me approach. We say, hey, I'm going to trust but verify approach. You have moved into what I call it like the secondary phase, which is we have the discretion to do it at the first recert or the second recert. Typically it's done at the second recert, but the audit transfers into more of a partner. You write your program. We partner with you on making sure that your goals are set, that things are in alignment. So we stop asking questions like, can you show me where the policy is? We start moving into questions like, how does the policy impact you? How do you continuously improve? It becomes more of how has it integrated or ingratiated itself into the fabric of the company versus the fundamentals of, can you find it? Do you know, is it written down somewhere? Who do you ask? And then it moves into how much is it saturated? How much has it adopted? And then what direction does the organization want to go with ISO? And you're able to achieve that in your first 3 years versus your first 6 years. And that takes a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of time and money and energies from a leadership team that's committed. So my fine point is that without an active, engaged, committed leadership team, none of that happens. And so it takes a competent, visionary leader and leadership team that actually sticks to their mission, goals, and values to achieve that at that pace.
So you're saying we're your favorite client?
No money has been exchanged prior to
yes, this is independent.
No, I will say that, and to be honest, I set the bar for 27,001 for a large swath of my clients. When they say this is too hard, or I don't like these controls, or how do I do this, or how do companies achieve this? And I have to kind of remind them that there are organizations 5 times their size across multiple continents who are doing it and are thriving. And into the point where having you as a trailblazer in your space helps give other companies I work with the confidence to know that with the resources and the journey that we've set up for them, not dissimilar to yours, that it is an achievable thing and it's possible. And once the light bulb goes on and they understand how it works, how ISO can be an assistant and a rocket engine under a business if it's done right. Once that buy-in, that light bulb clicks, then it just goes like wildfire. But getting people to trust the system that they built, stick to it and follow it takes discipline and a commitment and a level of understanding that sometimes happens real quick and sometimes it doesn't. But when it does, it's impressive to watch.
Yeah, and I must admit, along our journey, and we were talking about this just before we push record on the camera. We're talking about where we're at now, where our ISO now feels like it's almost like the business is growing around it.
Yep.
And it's at its core, it's assisting in decision making. It's assisting in direction. It's assisting in so many different ways. It's actually ingrained into the business where we're there, and when we're making a decision, it's like, okay, so what's the risk matrix? How's that going to look? How is that going to impact this? How is that going to impact that? If we do experience a challenging situation or an emergency, we refer to the methodology that we've set up and we've structured within ISO. When we are making decisions, we're going through and we're saying, okay, was this the best decision? Using plan, do, check, act, which is something I know you're very excited that we have ingrained into the business. Being able to really use it to assist to grow the business, which has been really, really fascinating, especially looking at things like 9,001 people and systems. We have external government agencies that come here and they have a look at how we're operating our business, and they're surprised as to how well the business is operating and running and how well it's structured. That's only happening because of 9,001. And the ability for us to have a framework for us to follow and to fit within. And then with 27,001, there are some pretty big decisions that we make from a security perspective, and that gives us the framework to make those decisions a lot more simple, because we've set up policies and which adhere to 27,001, and then we're able to follow those policies. And it's again, like I said, it's really assisting us in just the types of decisions we're making, how we make those decisions, and then the measuring of those outcomes to understand if those were the best decisions that we made.
I think it bears repeating. We talked about a little beforehand. We just finished our audit interview. So we pick about 30 random employees every year. And he talked about year one, it was, what is ISO? Where is ISO? What does it mean to you? Can you find it? And this year it was more conversational. And the modules, the integration, how people are brought in from the very beginning, from the outside, they were already understanding and incorporating the plan, do, check, act in their own personal fabric. Talking with them, it was like, oh, we do this, we do plan, do, check, act, and this is how we can do better with our clients. So it wasn't asking, do you know? in the conversations that were unsolicited, they were talking about the concepts of continuous improvement, the concepts of Plan, Do, Check, Act, because it was instilled from them. And they talked about how that helps them in both here and outside. And so our conversation now can shift to making them their own independent management systems underneath a management system and giving them the ability to grow their own selves, their own Plan, Do, Check, Acts, which only helps protect their customers. It also helps with, customer satisfaction and them looking ahead for a customer and deciding, am I doing this? What's the next thing? What's coming down the road for them? How can I improve my relationship with them? Only benefits the customer. And so it was quite the growth curve. It was a very light bulb moment that everything you'd poured into it is coming out voluntarily versus having to be nudged or pulled or coached or anything like that. So that was a good culmination, I think, of what we're looking for. The journey is that people are talking about it just as part of who they are and what they do versus a system that they have to work under.
And you can't fake that.
No. And it was volunteered. It wasn't coached or led. And for the first time, because Eva was funny, she's like, Mr. Seth, you haven't said anything. I didn't have to. I mean, everything I was wanting to hear was being volunteered in a way that was really quite impressive because I didn't have anything to say. It was being said and I didn't have to ask it. So that's a sign of a true culture adoption when it comes to 9001 and 27001.
So as we wrap up, what advice would you give to other businesses they've been going through their growth journey? They don't have any form of, well, they have a rough framework of around systematization of policies and governance and risk management, et cetera, and they're thinking about going down the ISO path. Where should they start first, and what direction do you think they should go if they want to look at additional ways of implementing risk management, governance, and policies and procedures around how it is they can move towards a standard?
Sure. I think that one, get a knowledge base of what the standard says, because a lot of times people will say, I want ISO, but they don't often understand what the requirements of the standard are. They think ISO is something you can just drop in and it works, but understanding, what is the shall statements, what are the inputs and the outputs, and what are the rules? Because as much as you want a quality system, I have to audit you against what the requirements are versus what it is you think would be a good fit. So there's an understanding of what the requirements are. And two, if you're thinking about getting into ISO, find somebody in your community, somebody that somebody that might be in your business circle, and ask them, what their experience is, what they've gone through and what their journey is. Basically expand your village, and then decide what kind of ISO system you really want to have. And in preparation for our conversation, I came across a good analysis, in my opinion. ISO 9001 and ISO 27001, as we're talking about in today's conversation, is you can call it a car. I can look at you and say, there's a car, a yellow car, a red car. There's an old car. A system is a car, but there's trucks, there's mopeds, there's any type of variety. But the difference between a good car, there's a difference between an old junker and a Maserati. They're both cars. But you have to decide what kind of car you want to achieve. And I think going into an ISO journey, you have to decide as an organization, do you want to be a Maserati organization? Or do you want to be just, a car that is, beat up and broken and just gets a basic job done? And what I find is that people who treat their journey like it's just a basic function and they don't give it the time, love, energy, and care. I mean, you're always taking care of a really good car. You're cleaning it, you're washing it, you're checking the engine, you're getting it serviced, you're making sure that it is functioning properly. So when it's time to perform, it acts how it's intended. It's not like something you can neglect and only, fix up when it has to go somewhere for a short period of time. I'm not going to send my daughter in her daily junker for a 2,000-mile journey, I'm going to be concerned it's not going to make it. ISO is not something you can just quickly fix up before an audit. It has to be something that's ingrained. So if you're not going to treat your quality system like you would a fine-tuned car, don't start it. If you want to have something that just basically gets you through, save your money.
If you're looking for a piece of paper, then that's not it.
That's not it. And I think too many organizations feel like they have to get a piece of paper to get the opportunity. But the problem is that they can get the paper, but they can't keep the opportunity. And that's where the disconnect really comes, is that, well, I have this paper, but customers don't come. They don't grow. They don't maintain those customers. It's because the customer wants the Maserati and you gave them the clunker. And they really can tell a difference, because when they engage with a client, or a customer, or a relationship from a customer to a person providing a service, they can tell the difference. It really is different. And if you're not willing to differentiate yourself and to be the Maserati, there are a lot of other people who will step in front of you and provide that service. And so if you're not willing to accelerate and to up your offerings and continuously find ways to get that extra bit of horsepower out of your engine, you're never going to win the race.
Well, thank you, Seth.
Yes, sir.
Again,
Absolutely.
It's been another good year of you being here, coming through, and like you said, the difference between year 1 and year 3 now, when you're sitting there and we're getting the cross section of people, and you're just sitting there and you're not saying anything. And I remember I don't think it was the first. Well, it might have been the second. I can't remember. I think it might have been the first when I was there with you the entire time.
Yep.
And now I have a team.
Second year. You weren't there the first year. You were sick.
That's right. Second year I was there with you, and then to where we're at now, where
you've let your team do their job because you know your system is working.
Yes.
And it's not a slight to you or I's relationship. It's that you know that you have people and processes in place that are doing what they're supposed to do. And that's why you get to be in charge of your quality system next year. And I get to watch you grow and not pull it apart.
Yes. I look forward to the journey.
Me too.
Fantastic.
David. Thank you.
And thank you, team, for all the work that you've done.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for all the work that you've done, and the camera crew as well.
Yeah.
But thank you for all the work that you've done, team, in the background, preparing us for our ISO certification. And again, this is a special episode, a special podcast, because I thought it was really interesting that having you here, Seth. I thought it was really interesting to be able to share the journey, because it has been a journey. This isn't like a getting everything together for a once a year panic. It's really taken it's taken what there's the crescendo right here, and it's evened it out across the entire year.
It should be a celebration of your success. That's what an audit should be.
Yes.
If you've done your part, it should be a celebration of your achievement, not a panic because last minute you've tried to piece it all together. If you're doing what you say you're doing, audit should be a piece of cake.
Exactly. So thank you again, everybody. Thank you, Seth.
Thank you, sir.
And if you have any questions around ISO, around the process we've gone through, you're thinking about going down the path yourself, I'm happy to share. I'm happy to share the journey, and happy to share if it can assist you along the journey. So thank you again. Thanks all. And we will see you again on the next podcast with Lisa.